How are you guys doing this morning? All right. Well, welcome this morning. Happy Wednesday to everybody. 1 Million Cups is an entrepreneurial forum that was founded by and sponsored by the Kaufman Foundation out of Kansas City, Missouri. And right now, all across the country, in about 180 cities, entrepreneurs just like us are gathering to share their success stories and their challenges. So welcome this morning, folks. Do we have any first-timers, any newcomers in the room? Please raise your hand. I'm also joined by a team of organizers that help to make this possible every Wednesday morning. If you're an organizer, please raise your hand so you can be recognized. Fantastic. Guys, this morning I'm really excited. We've got quite a dynamic speaker. We've got Mr. Jim Schreiner with us this morning. Jim has a history of nutraceutical product development. He's also the author of multiple books. He shared the stage with some pretty impressive people, the original Juice Man, as well as Jack LaLanne and others. But this morning he's here to talk to us about an interesting concept, a TV show that he's working on. So please help me welcome Jim Schreiner to the stage.
I would say I like to talk, as you're going to find out, so I'm going to have to talk rather quickly. I'll try to enunciate because I've got a lot to say. Sean wanted me to spend a few minutes and tell you a little bit about myself before I get to the project that I'm working on. Go ahead, Sean, if you don't mind. I tend to talk with my hands quite a bit, so Sean's going to run the prompter for me, if you don't mind. As he said, I've been blessed. I've been a master's degree in sports medicine with a philosophy of exercise and nutrition, doing a lot of research with stem cell immunology. One of my biggest hits, I produce television commercials for products. One of my biggest hits was an arthritis formula that I developed called Arthro-D, Arthritis Defense. At one time, we're still pretty close to the top. We were one of the top selling joint support products on the market. I developed a series of television shows for the Food Network called Healthy Meals in Minutes. I've literally studied the human body my entire life. Great job. As he said, I worked with Jay Cordes, the original Juice Man, who's since passed away. I worked closely, I traveled with Jack LaLanne before he passed. I worked with Dr. John Gray on divisional products. Good, John. I just, really what I wanted to show you is that I truly have been blessed. Some of you may have seen, I was one of the original gladiators on the show out in California. I was the first gladiator that was a contestant, and then Bob Levy, who was the producer of the show, asked me to stay on, and I was the first lightning. I happened to be kind of fast. I also produced my own exercise show for the Christian Network. I jokingly say I was as knee-deep into Christianity as you could get. I was born into Catholicism, then became a Southern Baptist Christian. I actually, for 5 years, produced a very successful Christian television show called Eternally Fit, Getting Fit with Jim. We focused on mind, body, and spirit. I worked closely, I was a regular guest with Pat Robertson. This is young Robert Schumer from the Crystal Cathedral. We did a wellness clinic out in San Capistrano, California for years. Again, my entire focus was teaching people how to tap into the powers of the universe. I believe that the body has natural healing powers in us and around us, and that's what I teach people how to tap into. That was about me. Now we're going to talk about the love of my life. This wonderful woman by the name of Jules. Her name is Julie, but we actually called her Jules because she was a true jewel. Julie suffered with one of the most incredible diseases, the most horrible diseases known to man, rheumatoid arthritis. I cared for my wife for over 25 years, and what people will realize after a little while is she was the kindest, the most compassionate, the most loving and caring human being on the planet Earth. And there's nothing more, I could not say more better things about this woman. You're going to hear a lot more about her throughout the day. One of the things that you'll find out about my wife is this disease was horrible, but she was a champion. I said on here, the true definition of a warrior. Mike and I talk about this. A warrior, they always say a warrior is a person who, when they get knocked down, they get back up. That's not a warrior. A warrior gets back up, but they figure out how to pick others up too. That was my wife. Not only did she get knocked down more times than anybody on planet Earth, and not only did she get back up, she figured out how to pick up everyone around her. That's a warrior. Despite all the power of prayer, I believed in the healing power of miraculous prayers from heaven. Despite all the prayers in the best churches on the universe, the disease took my wife's legs, Her bones in her back, neck, and spine continued to break daily. For the last 5 years of her life, we were literally glued to a Mayo Clinic or a university hospital. Every bone in her body fractured almost on a daily basis. But my wife was always happy. We called her Jules is Happy. Matter of fact, that's still her email account, Jules is Happy. I put these two slides up here because I want to prove something. This right here, a few years ago, we were at Daytona Beach during Bike Week, and this was my wife. She literally cruised her scooter down the middle of Bike Week, thousands of people, and she went up to the meanest, ugliest bikie gang that you can imagine. Handed her a prosthetic leg and said, "Would you guys drink a beer out of this?" You want to talk about turning the meanest men into puppy dogs. That's what she did. Look at the smile on these guys' face. They were blown away that this woman says, "Hey, would you drink a beer out of my prosthetic leg?" I built this mobility scooter for my wife, and you'll notice closely it's got two dualies on the back because she loved to cruise the beach. And I'd be out on the beach surfing or kayaking with the dolphins, and my wife would cruise up and down the beach. Well, even with the dualies on the back, as she got in the soft sand, she'd get stuck. And I would look, and she'd just waving at me on the beach, and all of a sudden I'd look, and there's a crowd around her. And they would say, "Ma'am, can we help you? Can we help you?" She says, "Nope, I'm stuck in the sand at Daytona Beach." It's a great day to be me. Go ahead, Sean. I only put this slide up here for one reason. It's not to brag. This is a dear friend of mine named Eddie Montgomery. And my wife and I practice a term called humanism. In the midst of all the struggles that's going on in life, we need to adopt humanism. That's humans being kind to other humans. If you do not listen to country music, at least listen to this man. And I'm going to tell you why. Eddie Montgomery is a legend in the country music. He was the singing duet Montgomery Gentry. He's won Grammys. He is one of the country music's legends. When Eddie found out that my wife was not doing well, he stopped on his tour bus, literally pulled the tour bus on the side of the road and called and talked to my wife for 20 minutes. That's a good human. Despite all the power of prayer in the world, on April 26th of 2018, my wife died in my arms in my Florida Beach house, never receiving a divine miracle that we had been promised. Go ahead, Sean. I learned something that day. I said, you know what? The church always wins. Let's say you have a disease. Let's say you have cancer. You come to church and they pray for you, and you get better. You go into what we call remission. The church will say, "We did that. Our prayers did that." But if you don't go into remission and you die, the church says, "No, it wasn't God's plan." They take the wins and they take the losses. It seemed unusual to me. Go ahead, Sean. I had an awakening. And I want you to imagine, as I said earlier, I was born into Catholicism and Christian Baptist. We were taught that God, through the Bible, were miraculously healing people. They were growing new eyes and new limbs and new ears and new body parts. And I know it sounds crazy. I mean, I'm a very intelligent man. I believed it. I believed it, that we were growing new body parts and people were getting healed. I want you to imagine, I was standing in this hospital room. They just removed my wife's second leg. The room is filled. My mother-in-law, her priest, 5 deacons from our church, and the surgeon came in and said, "I'm afraid to tell you that the cancer has now reached her spine, and we're going to have to start removing bone tissue." And I remember for the first time screaming out loud, "Jesus Christ, enough already. What more could this woman go through? What more should she have to endure?" And as I said that, everyone in the room was laying their hands on my wife, and they were praying out loud for God to miraculously heal her and to grow her new legs. And I stopped them right in the middle and I said, "Wait a second. You actually want me to believe that God is going to, on your command, reach down and grow my wife new limbs?" And without a splint, they all said, "Yes." And I knew right then I'd been conned. Never in the history of mankind has anyone grown a new leg. I don't care what anybody told you, what the church told you, your parents told you, it's never happened. But guess what? We're getting close to doing it with stem cells. So science has a shot at growing new limbs, and that's what I've been focusing on. I call it immunology. The last 5 years of my life I've been studying immunology. But at this point, I realized my wife's body was not going to grow new limbs, so I needed to figure out how to heal the body. Go ahead, John. Okay, that's about us. It was a story about my wife and I. Now it's going to take me into the journey of why we're here today. Like I told you, from that point forward, I really put a lot of focus on immunology, stem cell research, and trying to figure out how, because Whether you believe in a God or creation or evolution doesn't really matter. I believe in a creator. I believe the creator of the universe gave our bodies healing powers. They're in our bodies and they're also in the universe. And what I do is I teach people how to tap into and balance those healing powers. But like my wife, sometimes people's body gets so far out of balance that they need help. And that's what we're helping to do, is develop medicine for people that we need better medicine to help people whose bodies are out of balance. I've been, as Sean has said, I've been truly blessed in my life. This year I actually have 2 books published. They're put out by Ingram Press. Both, I'm going to plug here, you can go to jimschreiner.com and order one. Or you can go to Barnes & Noble on the 9th of next month and the books will actually be released. This is my spiritual journey. It's my wife and I wrote this book, and it's our journey through organized religion, what we've experienced, what we saw in organized religion. The second one is my health teachings. People ask me all the time, Jim, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm the garbage man. So what do you mean the garbage man? For 40 years, I've tried to dig through the garbage, and I've tried to throw out bad science, and I've tried to tell people, here's what I know works. And what I've also learned is in my over 50 years on this planet, things change. We're understanding more about the human body, to where that information that I gave out is a lot different than what I gave out 20 years ago, because we're learning and understanding so much about the body. So I sift through the garbage and I try to give people facts. I'm not going to tell you, I'm in my 50s. I'm in the best shape of my life. I had a cold once. I've never had the flu. Why? Because I believe my teachings work. I teach people how to tap into the healing powers of their body, and it works. I also wrote a little book about my wife. We call it the Jewel Strong Story. And what I did there is it was just a real small book, and I wanted to share my wife's story, but I wanted to show people what rheumatoid arthritis did. A lot of people didn't understand what rheumatoid arthritis was. Interestingly, the publisher loved the book. They want to turn it into a novel and hopefully make it into a screenplay for a movie. And I know that sounds amazing, but guess what? They've done it before. Have anybody in the room ever saw one of my favorite movies by Jake Gyllenhaal is called October Sky. And it was a book called Rocket Boys. It was about a rocket scientist by the name of Homer Hickman. The publisher that has my book did that. They wrote that book, made that manuscript, and made that movie. And it was one of my favorite movies. So we're going to do that. And I've been blessed and honored that I've hired Sean to take this book, and him and I are working together to turn it into not only a novel, but into a manuscript that one day we will make a movie. From the day that I met my wife in Chicago 25 years ago, till the day she literally died in my arms, 25 years, we never had one fight. I know that sounds amazing. And I know people drop this term a lot, soulmates. We're still connected. She was the only woman I've ever loved, and we're still connected. And I'm going to make a movie out of that woman. Okay, the reason why we're here, I have an idea. I had an epiphany. My wife passed away, and the week that she died, the front door of my house became like a revolving door. People were coming in from just neighbors to spiritual leaders to pastors to priests, you name it, they were walking through the door. And everybody had not only did they pay the respects, but everybody had a different theory as to where she went. So I needed something to do to take my mind off of it, so I kind of created a game. And I said, I want you to imagine that this represents the first spark of life. This is it. This is the first spark of life. This is what the world is literally killing each other over, because we can't seem to get along, and we're fighting over these two questions. Where did this first spark of life come from? And when it dies, where does it go? So everyone that came in my house, I started asking them those two questions. You know, where did my wife come from? What do you think? And when she died and she had a soul or a spirit, where did it go? And you would be blown away at the answers I got. And I'm like, oh my God, the world needs to hear this. Literally. And I had an epiphany for my next television show. Sean and I teamed up, and he had a great idea. I did what I called a 30-day church-a-thon. Shortly after my wife passed, for 30 days, I went and visited as many religious organizations, mosques, I've been to temples, and I did 2 visits at the Buddhist temple. I just talked to any religious leader, and I honestly walked in and sincerely said, look, my wife passed away, I'm on a spiritual journey, and I asked them those 2 questions. Where do we come from and where do we go? Again, you would be blown away at the answers. The world needs to hear this. Currently, if you look back through time, there are about 3,000 gods, if you go back to Thor and Zeus and all the different gods that we as a humanity have worshipped over time. Right now, there's predominantly about 7 to 8 really what I call hardcore predominant religions. If you look at Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam. And what's interesting is every single one of them will say, hey, we're the truth. They're not. We're the truth. They're not. Well, I've learned throughout this journey that we have got to figure out how to get along while we try to answer those two questions, because we'll probably never find the answer to those two questions. But in the meantime, we need to find common ground. We need to respect someone else's belief while they respect our belief. A good example, Sean and I spent a lot of time together. He and I have a very similar philosophy on beliefs. Not exact, but very close. I can still love him, I can still appreciate him, and I can still respect his opinion without judging him. And he can do the same to me. Susan's become a friend of mine. Susan and I have discussions, some people may call them debates, on religion and theory. And sometimes they've gotten pretty crazy. But you know what? I can still love her, and I can still be friends with her, and I can still respect her and appreciate her and not judge her on what she believes, because we're all on a spiritual journey. And I believe we're all trying to find the answer to that. But as a human race, we've got to learn to get along. And that's what I'm hoping with this television show called Defending My Faith. What I wanted to do, we shot an episode I just got back from Boston. Matter of fact, I was so excited, I told Sean, I've driven 4,000 miles in the last week. I drove my RV. I had to go to Kentucky working on a project. I drove from Kentucky to Boston. We produced 2 infomercials. I drove back to Kentucky to pick up some stuff and drove here. I literally came rolling in the night before last at like 1 in the morning, and I don't even know how I'm standing. But I told him, I said, of all the projects I've ever worked on, I've never been more excited to be here. This is it for me. I'm all in. And I shot a pilot episode for this, and I proved my concept. We shot 30 minutes. That'll be dubbed down into a 5-minute, what we call a sizzle reel. And we'll take that sizzle reel and we'll shop it out to networks like A&E and Discovery Channel. Hulu's got some great stuff now. Amazon got some great stuff. I interviewed 7 people. Some I knew, some I didn't know. And of the 7, at least 5 of them gave a different theory. We're talking about 7 people, and 5 of them gave a different theory as to where my wife went. And what was interesting, 2 of them I had never heard before. And I actually sat there thinking, that's very interesting. I would watch that show. So, as I said to these gentlemen the other day, I'm going to produce this show. It's going to happen. I need your help to make it happen. Good job. In comparison, a lot of you probably remember Lee Remedy from the show King of Queens. She's a superstar. She wrote a book called Troublemaker. That book went on to become a New York Times bestseller. A&E reached out to her and gave her her own show called Escaping Scientology. Very similar concept to what I'm trying to do. She exposed Scientology for some of their issues. What I'm trying to do is educate the consumer on the different religions, so that I use a term you hear quite a bit called standing in my own truth. I want to be able to stand in my own truth, but I can't stand in my own truth until I've weighed all the evidence, until I've weighed all the facts. And what I want to do is give the consumer all the facts so they can stand in their own truth. And that's what I want to do with this show. Interestingly, and I'm going to end with this. When I had my television show before, it was very easy to get a television show. If you're charismatic and dynamic, it was very easy. It's very difficult now because everybody is pitching a show. So it's very difficult. So in order to get a television show now, you need them to come after you rather than me go after them. So I need your help. I've got to create enough traction. I've got to create enough buzz. I've got to create enough attention, similar to what Lee did, to where a network looks at this guy and says, wow, that's a great concept. We need him. I don't want to go after them. And I've got 2 things you can help me with. You'll see here, I brought a free copy of my Jesus Christ book. Everybody's going to get a copy here when they leave. But you have one condition. One of my best friends is a New York Times best-selling author, and we learned best-selling authors, I hate to use the word trick because it's not really a trick, but there's a way that to become a New York Times best-selling author, you have to move books. You don't have to sell books, but you have to move books. And what's interesting, he learned this technique that all authors use. If you call Barnes & Noble, just because I have a book published and it's distributed, doesn't mean that every Barnes & Noble has to carry it in the bookstore. They don't have to carry it unless somebody orders it. So if you call Barnes & Noble and say, I would like to order Jim Schreiner's book, Jesus Christ in Operating, they'll take your name and your telephone number, and they'll call you when it's in, and you can come pick it up. And you don't have to pick it up. You don't have to pay for it, you have to pick it up. And if you don't pick it up within 24 hours, or I think it's 48 hours, they put it on the shelf. And they don't buy just one book. They buy 3 or 4. So here, we've already got Florida covered, so I want to try that one. What I'm proposing is I'm going to give you a book for free today as long as you agree to call one Barnes & Noble and order the book. Like I said, you don't have to pay for it. If you decide to, hey, I love it, give it to a friend. But as long as you order it, then Barnes & Noble is forced to call my distributor, pick up the book, put it in the bookshelves. That's how New York Times best-selling authors get their books out. We learned that little trick. And the last one is, I need your help. Not only, how do you see this show looking? Back it up, Sean. And the set that you saw this shoot on was a set that we used for my infomercials. So we already had it, we shot it, and this was just for the sizzle reel. I envisioned more of an Oprah Winfrey talk show set, like white couches like this. I want to be the investigator. I want to be the host of the show. I don't want to take a position. I don't want to acknowledge. I don't want to, you can ask me what my position is, but I'm not going to defend it. I don't want to be the guy defending it. What I want to do is I want to have a guest on and ask you, where did my wife go? Defend your position. Where did my wife go? Defend your position. I'm not going to judge you. And what I've learned is there is no right or wrong answer. Because guess what? Until you die, we will never know, absolutely never know the answer to that question. All we have is theories. All we have is theories. We all have different theories. What I'm proposing is we've got to learn as a human race to get along and respect one another's theories while we seek those truths. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. So this brings us to our Q&A portion here. Get a little drink here real quick. Anybody got questions? Great. Please introduce yourself, name and business.
Rick with mobilecoal.com. When you spoke about, you used the word that it was the greatest con job that you'd seen in a while. I do understand what you're saying about some of the reality of growing limbs might have happened in the Old Testament, but I've never heard of it. But how do you balance what happened to your wife and where your faith is now?
How do I balance? Can you explain what you mean by balance?
By balance, what portion of your faith do you still hang on to strong, and what portion do you let go?
I would say, if you're asking me my personal, I'm what they call it, I practice deism. Einstein coined the term deism. I'm never, in my lifetime, at least I hope not, I'm never going to come to the position that we weren't somehow created. I think that there's no way that you can look at the human structure of the body, that the universe and the galaxies and the solar systems, and I don't believe that you'll never convince me that something did not have a hand in that first piece of life. But I no longer believe that there's some gray-haired, bearded guy sitting on a throne that's going to cast people in hell and hate you for being homosexual or hate you for your preference in religion. I believe organized religions, and if you look at the history of organized religions, again, they're stories that we came up with to try to figure out that we're all afraid of the unknown. This is the truth. And some of my friends actually say that people are afraid of the dark, and because they're afraid of the dark, they'll come up with different theories and stories. So to answer your question, I believe my spirit is connected to my wife, and I believe my spirit is connected to a higher power. But I believe that whoever created us gave our bodies natural healing powers, and that's a scientific proof. Our bodies, and think about it, if you cut your finger and you don't think it's stupid, what happens? It heals. It gets better. Is that a miracle? No, it's the body doing its job. Your immune system is designed to fight off. If you get the flu, a couple days later, a week later, you get better, right? Why? Because that's the immune system doing its job. Well, it's no different than cancer. If you get cancer, we hear people going into remission. They call it remission. I've seen spontaneous remissions. I've seen people go into remission, and sometimes in unusual circumstances. But that did not say that somebody reached out of the sky and touched that person and they were divinely healed. No, their body figured out how to tap into the powers of the universe. We're surrounded by universal energies. The earth gives off an energy. Air has energy. We're energy. So I believe that we have this natural healing power. But to answer your question, I do believe there's a creator, but I don't believe it's the one that the organized religions have been talking about. And lastly, when you had said something interesting, how I got to this position, I've stood on stage with the Pat Robertsons and the Benny Hinns and the Creflo Dollars and the Copelands, where they're talking through the camera and claiming that they have missionaries in other countries. There are, in fact, still doing that. growing new ears, growing new eyes, growing new limbs, miraculously healing people. I've never seen one. Matter of fact, as I wrote in the book, I said, you know, here we're on television telling people that we're performing all these, I call them instantaneous miracles. They're laying hands on somebody and, oh my God, the guy just grew a limb. That's what they were professing, and they're still professing it now. And I would always ask, hey, if we had a picture or a video, sure would help. And we conveniently could never have one. So then I realized that the human body is just not capable, with help from anything, just not capable of growing a new limb. But stem cells doing it right now, and that's where we need to put our focus on. Yes, sir.
Hi, Alex, and Signature Real Estate. It's very interesting that I'm here today. Today would be the birthday of my wife that passed away 10 years ago from cancer.
I knew that.
And I've been trying to answer that question for 10 years. I'm a Catholic. I was born a Catholic. Not much of a churchgoer. I really lost faith years ago because I thought, why? You know, why did she have to go? She was a fantastic person. And I've been trying to answer that question for 10 years. Where did she go? I never got the brochure from the other side. I've never seen it. I'm the kind of person that I need to believe. I like to see it. And so I got a question for you. Where do you think they went? You know, it's because you brought it up, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, all right, dude, you wrote a book, so help me out.
If I were mean, I'd say, hey, read the book. But I'm not.
I'll read the ending.
I actually have the book. Read the book. I actually have people that have done that. They get the book and go right to the end. As Sean and I have discussed, and let me back up. There's two things I want to say real quick. On this show, now again, one of my best friends is a Harvard attorney. I mean, this guy is, in my opinion, he's brilliant. Okay, so I had him on the show and I asked him, hey, where'd my wife go? He actually believes, and the reason I'm saying this is because he actually believes that we're like a tiny speck, almost like the Matrix. That we're like a tiny speck in somebody else's tiny speck, and somebody else's tiny speck in another galaxy, and another. He doesn't want to say that he believes in UFOs, but he does believe there's other life forms in other galaxies, in other dimensions. And through quantum physics and quantum mechanics and stuff, I don't know, guys, we're getting pretty close to finding that to be true. There's a lot of things going out there that we can't explain. On your point, I believe, as Sean and I are very close, we're made up of energy. That's a fact. We're all energy. We're surrounded by energy. And when my wife died, her energy went back out into the universe. Now, Buddhists believe that energy is reincarnated, that she could come back as a butterfly or a dolphin or something. And I've been to the Buddhist temples and studies and stuff. I believe that energy is out there and that we somehow have access to that energy. One of the things that makes me feel better and actually gets me through the day, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I think it's a good point, is I hold on to the fact that when this earthly body dies, that I believe that our energy will be reconnected somehow. It's a theory, just like everybody else's theory, just like Christianity is a theory, Buddhism is a theory, Islam is a theory. That's a theory. It's just my theory. I can't prove it, just like nobody can prove anything. It's just what makes me feel better. I believe that when this earth body dies, somehow or another, our energies are going to be reconnected, and that makes me feel better. And the reason why I say that is I've learned throughout this journey not to condemn anyone for what they believe, as long as they're not doing it for evil. As they're not blowing up buildings or flying planes into buildings or blowing up abortion clinics. If you want to believe in the Bible and you read and you pray and you think you're connected to a deity, fantastic. If that makes you feel better, fantastic. Find out what makes you feel better. If you want to go to a Buddhist temple and hang out with the monks and you feel connected and that makes you feel better and that makes you a better person, fantastic. Find what works for you. I've also learned, like with meditation. Susan's going to teach you about meditation. I can't meditate like Susan does. I've tried. I just can't do it. It's not me. My meditation is kickboxing. I can tear up a heavy bag. That's my meditation. But it works for me. It makes it, for that 30 minutes, I'm in the zone. I've zoned out the world. I'm connected to the universe. So find what works for you. Find your spiritual path and understand that we're all trying to get there. We just may take different paths. But respect that person, because there is no truth. We may never find the answer. So just respect somebody's opinion. Yes.
Jim, regarding your presentation, all I can say is wow.
Thank you.
I mean, it's the only word for it. My question to you, have you read the book, You Are the Placebo?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, expound on how you saw that book.
Powerful. Here's one of the things. Matter of fact, I do a wellness seminar. Matter of fact, I'm hoping to team up with Mike here. If you guys have not met Mike, meet Mike with this. Jim, DME Sports, is that what it's DME Sports? You've got to hit the sports clinic. It's off the chain. Matter of fact, I was just bragging to Susan about it. You got to go see it. This guy's got the facility that is just impeccable. And a lot of people, how many of the people in the room have ever heard the term the placebo effect? How many people understand the philosophy of the placebo effect? Here's what a lot of people never heard of it, and most people have no clue. Real quick, I'm going to give you in a nutshell why I believe in immunology, and why I've been studying stem cells in immunology. Imagine 1,000 people all getting diagnosed with a disease today. Here's how we came up with the placebo effect, and this proves my point of the laws of the body healing itself and the power of the universe. Take 1,000 people that have an illness. Medical researchers will take 500 of those people and they'll put them on an actual medicine, a drug. And they'll take the other 500 people and they'll put them on a nothing pill. A lot of times it's called a sugar pill. Watch this closely. Those 500 people have been told that they're taking the medicine that is going to cure them of their disease. Think about that. Their mind thinks that they're taking the drug that is going to get them better. And in over 40% of the cases, those people got the same benefits of the people taking the medicine. Why? Because the brain, and we know this through epigenetics, we know this. We know that your mind can change the DNA structure of the cells in your body. We can scientifically prove it. We know that your mind can slow down the aging process of a cell. We know that your mind can actually slow down the dying of a cell in your body. We know that. So we know that the mind can heal the body. Now here's where it gets tricky. There are studies coming out now through quantum physics and quantum mechanics that they believe that your thoughts actually affect the universe. A lot of people, you've heard this laws of attraction. You've heard these laws of attraction. Now, scientists are trying, now here's the challenge. It's a theory and they can't prove it yet. Now we can prove that you can change the cells in your body. I can prove scientifically that my brain can change the cells in my body. But can my brain effectively change the cell in his body? There's science that believes that can happen by changing the universe, changing the energy in the universe, that my thoughts can change that energy in the universe. And that if you have a multitude of people praying, meditating, or thinking about a certain thought, that they believe that they can change and alter the universe. I'm excited to see where that technology goes. I gotta be honest with you. Real quick though, but here's the interesting thing. That does not prove or disprove a God. You know, I talked to my buddy Mike. He believes in the solar systems and the galaxies and the universes and all these twilights and black holes and all this. And that's all great. There still could be a creator. Maybe he's just bigger than we thought. I'm not saying that doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove there is or there isn't. But you know what? It helps him sleep good at night. Go ahead.
Jim, Tyler LeCompte, Networks Inc. So the book that you have that you're going to give out, that was written previously, but it's still for sale, and you still want our help with trying to get that out there, correct?
Absolutely. The book
revenue streams are revenue streams. Let's keep them coming, yeah? Right?
I'm sorry?
I said revenue streams are revenue streams.
And to be honest with you, like I said, guys, and I'm not saying this to brag, I've been blessed. It's not about the money, but honestly, I've been blessed. My point is that I need to create traction. I need to create awe. Like you said, I need a wow. I need a network to see.
For you,
for
you
me.
as a brand.
Yeah, exactly. I'm branding Jim Schreiner. I got podcasts, I got YouTube channels. I got exactly. What happens is that book. My wife and I wrote that book, and I'm sad to say that it didn't. It got to the publisher, but we didn't actually get it printed until she passed, about 2 weeks before she passed. But it's available. You go to Jim Schreiner right now, order the book. It's available. People are getting copies. It hits the bookstores on the 9th of next month. So actually, we'll physically be in the bookstore the 9th of next month, but it's available at jimschreiner.com now. Again, I'll give you like anything that you can think of that can help me promote that book will help me get attention for the television show. So there's no such thing as a bad idea. If you can figure out how to market that book and help get that book out, it'll help me get closer to the TV show.
Could you, okay, so thank you for the clarification. That was helpful. Can you talk a little bit about the effort and economics that goes into coming up with a TV concept, launching that. You've done it in the past, so if you could kind of step over to that side for a minute and say, hey, if anybody here is considering developing some content, it might be about the story about their business, it might be something of a larger, tale. Storytelling is very important right now. Could you give a little synopsis, like, hey, if you were trying to get into this game, here's my recommendation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, not to plug my friend Sean, but I will. Sean actually says, which I believe everybody has a story. If you ever want to write a book about your journey, talk to Sean. When it comes to books, he's the guy.
Yeah.
So if you ever now, when it comes to video production, my buddy Mike and I use the term bootstrapping. We started our company, Blue Base Marketing, almost 15 years ago. Literally maxed out our credit cards, cashed in our 401ks. We did everything. And that company, we started with about $150,000 between the three of us, our three partners. We had about $150,000. We spent about $300,000 to get started, so we were, in debt. And consistently for the first couple of years, we were at least $2 million in debt, trying to build off of that. We bootstrapped it, and every dime that came in, we were on the phones, we took orders. Literally, I say this in all honesty. Find what you love to do that puts a smile on your face, and do that. Because life is too short. I'm telling you, I've learned that the hard way. Do that. I don't care what it takes. Find out what it is. Put every ounce of energy, time, money, everything you have into doing that. Because I don't work. I have got a great life. If my wife were here, it'd be perfect. I have a great life because I enjoy what I do. But when you talk about economics, we didn't borrow any money at first. We're always getting lines of credit, because what people don't realize is, like my Arthur D formula, in order to get a good price on that product, you got to buy volume. I can't buy 10 bottles, I got to buy 1 million bottles. Well, I can't afford to buy 1 million bottles at $4 a bottle. So where do I get that? So you get lines of credit. So a lot of times the manufacturers will give you a line of credit. You put up so much equity, so much capital, they'll give you a line of credit. Media funding. Here's what a lot of people don't realize. Here's where it gets tough. And forget about an actual television show. Now I'm talking about an infomercial. My Arthur D it's a 30-minute infomercial. When you watch these infomercials on TV, they're 28.5 minutes long. When you buy that media has to be bought in advance. They won't give it to you, and they won't let you air your commercial, take in the money, and then pay them. If you want to buy $1 million worth of media, you got to pay it up front for 30 days. So I write you a check for $1 million, but I can't get that money back until the phone starts to ring. But they won't place the media until you buy it. So now you got to figure out who's going to credit you $1 million to buy the media. And again, Mike, my business partner Mike, is brilliant at. This guy's a fighter. Not only do we bootstrap it, but every day he gets up and we're in battles. We're in battles trying to scrape here and scrape here. And thankfully, like I said, our efforts paid off. After the first 3 years, we were consistently doing like $25 million a year in sales. But again, we believed in it, we bootstrapped it, we cashed out our 401ks, put everything we could on credit cards, we maxed out. We literally were all in. All in. And quick story, I got to share this, and I shared with Mike earlier. A lot of people don't understand in the supplement industry, it's on a side note, in the supplement industry, the government's position is that all supplements are quackery. That's their position. They don't believe any of them work. So we're always defending our claims against supplements. So we're always defending our claims. Well, we were making claims about our Arthur D formula, our arthritis formula, and we had the substantiation, we had the Harvard research studies, we had all the testimonials, but every time we go to court, they were suing us for these claims that we were making on television. We always lost. Now, my business partner Mike is a Harvard attorney, brilliant litigator. We had lost at 3 levels. We literally had 120-some employees, 3 of us partners. We packed our boxes. We were shutting down, this is almost 5 years ago, literally closing the doors because we were now going to the Supreme Court. We defended against the Supreme Court these claims. We'd already lost 3 battles. Mike litigated, we're sitting in the litigation room. I'm serious, my boxes are packed. We're out, we're done, closing the doors. We won. We won. Mike is one of only 2 attorneys that have actually won against the FDA on a claims case for a vitamin supplement. I'm probably going to cry. We won. And we got an injunction that they could never sue us again on those claims. Go ahead, sir.
Alex, first of all, great presentation. Alex with Be More Corny, Orman Beach Rentals. So I just wanted to kind of, I guess it's not necessarily a question, that maybe other than something to think about after today. So you mentioned a couple times that, you know, you're a firm believer in whether it's a specific God that anyone else also believes in or just a higher power, but if you make the assumption that God is all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful, and then you make the counter-assumption that we as humans know the limitations of our bodies and existence and science and stuff like that, you've kind of poked the bear at both sides that we know scientifically and factually that humans' bodies can't produce this biostem growth and stuff like that. I guess the double-edged sword here is you're looking for a black and white concrete answer backed by science for something that, as many of us have also noted, you want to see to believe. But as we've all kind of been in a scenario where that doesn't work, you have to believe it before you can see it. And not that I'm doubting the ability of the placebo effect in your mind changing things, but how do you explain the difference of your mind changing something that science can't prove? Is that in itself not really the power of a higher existence?
That's a wow. That's a wow. I wish I was Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris or somebody. That's probably above my pay grade.
I think you got your first guest on the show.
Exactly. But see, guys, I'm telling you, that's exactly my point. Is from the history of when life started until think about it. Some people think we've only been around for 6,000 years. Some people say we've been around for 1 million years. From the existence of time, we're trying to find the answer to those questions. And that's an amazing question. And I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm not the person to answer it. I'm not qualified because I'm still searching. And I'm trying to understand the human body. I'm trying to understand epigenetics and genealogy and immunology. And it's an ever evolving. One of the things, Neil deGrasse Tyson said something powerful to me a while back. He said, this God that the Christians talk about, or the Hindus talk about, or the Islam talk about, is they say God is all good, God's all powerful. Well, he can't be simultaneously both. You can look around and look. He's either not all good or he's not all powerful. And one of the things that used to bother me, and I think Richard Dawkins said this in an interview, one of the things that always bothered me is a child would fall out of a 2-story building and just so happened to land on a pillow and it lived. Oh my God, it was Jesus' miracle. Well, 9 million children died before the age of 5 from diarrhea. Where was God then? And so, in fact, he is all-powerful and all-good. He can't be that at the same time. In one of the seminars that I said a while back, I said, not to poke the bear, but, you really, the way I saw it, I'm trying to see if I can say this right, there was 3 options. God is either doesn't exist, the God that the Christians talk about. He's either all-powerful and is not in control, because obviously you can look around chaos, or he's all-powerful and he's in control and he's an asshole. Because, and I mean this, I try to be careful because I know when I say that I offend people, because watching human suffering at any level, in the United States, we actually, did anybody ever watch the show Seinfeld? Remember Seinfeld? The last episode of Seinfeld, if you remember, Jerry and the gang all got locked up for not helping a man get robbed. In the United States, we have adopted what we call the Good Samaritan rule. I want you to imagine this on a grand scale. If I walk outside of my house today and someone is doing harm to my friend Mike, and I have the ability to stop that, I'm obligated to. It's called the Good Samaritan rule. So the way I was brought up, okay, God's all powerful. He can do anything. So basically what that's saying is he's walking by and seeing a young girl get raped, and he's just deciding, I'll be all right with that one. I'll let that one slide. But after about 1 million or 2 go by, okay, I'll stop this one, but I won't stop that one. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Where's the Good Samaritan factor? In fact, he is all powerful and in control. That could have stopped. I had a very dear friend of mine was standing in a hospital room for one on Christmas Eve about 10 years ago. A dump truck ran through a stop sign, killed his daughter, paralyzed his wife from the neck down. And we were standing in the hospital room, and he said, man, I can't believe God caused this to happen. And a woman in the room said, well, God didn't cause it to happen. He said, no, but he allowed it.
Well, quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
Determinism, free will.
That's a long story.
Yeah.
No, seriously. Wait.
Have time for that.
You're gonna be the
Sit
first
down.
guest.
You're
You're gonna be the first guest on my television show.
All right, let's get this show funded.
Let's get this show funded. Hey, where I need help is finding somebody to pick this thing up. I want to produce it, I want to host it, but I need a network. I need somebody that says, dude, the world needs to hear what this guy's got to say, and the world needs to hear what you have to say. And that's what I want to do. Thank you.